Good morning. You're listening to WTIM, your information station, and our morning show brought to you by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville. I'm your host, Grayson Bauman, and joining us in this segment, we've got Monica Nyman. Monica is a senior nutrition educator and registered dietitian with the St. Louis Dairy Council. Good morning to you, Monica. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Thanks.
Glad to hear it. And thank you for joining us here today to talk a little bit, first and foremost, about National Diabetes Month, as November marks National Diabetes Month. So first, if you would, Monica, just tell us a little bit more about diabetes and how it affects our body, the differences between type 1 and 2. Anything you've got for me, what can you tell us?
Okay, so this is a little bit more of a clinical topic than listeners are probably used to hearing from the St. Louis Dairy Council, but we decided that diabetes is such a big topic, so we wanted to be sure to include it because it does include food, of course. And diabetes, of course, is a chronic illness. It affects about 38.4 million people in the United States. So there's a lot of people out there, probably a lot of listeners who say, yeah, I either have diabetes or I know somebody that has diabetes. So I'm just going to kind of try to explain this as simply as possible. But basically, diabetes affects how your body turns the food that you eat into energy. And so after you eat food, your digestive system breaks down those carbohydrates. Now, that's a big word. It's the most important word when it comes to food with the term diabetes, because those carbohydrates turn into sugar, which is what we call glucose, simple sugars, and that's really the body's preferred energy source. And then the pancreas produces a hormone called insulin, and that is, I call it like the key. It opens the body's cells to let that glucose kind of enter the body's cells. But if you don't have any insulin, if you're not making insulin, you have type 1 diabetes. And if you are making a lower amount of insulin, or maybe your body's not using it as efficiently as it should, then you have type 2 diabetes. And so what happens is that blood sugar is in the bloodstream, the insulin's not able to get in there to kind of lower it down. And so that leads to a lot of really terrible complications. Okay. And that's kind of what we want to prevent. We want to prevent the high blood sugars so that we don't have those health complications. And those kind of occur over time. And so because people with type 1, it's an autoimmune condition, they have to give themselves insulin. And there are fascinating, technologies these days. I've been a dietitian for 22 years, and just the technology that has come about over the couple of decades has been really fascinating for people with type 1 diabetes to kind of give themselves insulin and manage. And then if you have type 2 diabetes, there's a lot of tools in the toolbox. And so there's medications, physical activity is important, and the foods that you eat, and kind of a combination of all of that stuff can help manage type 2 diabetes.
Well, Monica, thank you for that breakdown on the differences between the two and just a little bit more in depth on what exactly diabetes is. You mentioned in there health complications. I'm wondering, what are some of the most typical that people might find with diabetes, or that come about because of diabetes? And also, what are some of those key markers maybe for those that maybe aren't sure, maybe they're just feeling low energy or things like that? Is there anything that might tip you off as to maybe you do have type 1 or type 2 diabetes?
Yeah, so first of all, I would really like to recommend pre-screening. Okay, so the yearly labs, the annual exams, those kinds of things catch early diabetes. And so I was just about a week ago or so interviewing with a different host, and he was telling me that he had pre-diabetes. And so that's a term that basically means your blood sugar is elevating, but it hasn't quite got to the numbers that would diagnose you as type 2 diabetes. And so evaluating, getting those annual exams, annual labs done every single year so that you can catch the numbers that are climbing, okay? So I'd like to recommend that. As far as complications, so long-term complications can be a variety of things. When I used to work in the hospital, I would see issues with like circulation. And so people will stop getting like the feeling of the nerves in their lower extremities, like particularly like their toes and things like that, to the point where sometimes you have to get your your toes or your leg or something amputated because there's literally no blood flow in there because the blood sugars have created so much damage to those nerves. It can be eyesight. Maybe you're losing your eyesight over time. And so making sure that you're getting your eyes checked regularly, especially as we age. It can cause heart issues. So just really a lot of little things that kind of add up into major problems over time. And all of those are being caused because your blood sugars are running too high. I had a close family member not too long ago that actually ended up in the emergency room from like weakness, fatigue, like passing out, not being able to get up off of the floor. And that person was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, a blood sugar of over 400, hadn't been going to the doctor, didn't know that those numbers were climbing. And so then, of course, is now on medication, changing the diet, getting some more activity. The blood sugar is coming down, because you have to monitor that on a regular basis. So if you're someone out there that has maybe type 2 diabetes and you're just trying to change your eating a little bit, you still need to be monitoring that with the blood sugar checks, usually once or twice a day, to kind of watch those, getting the A1Cs done. So it's a very complicated disease, but it can definitely be managed, especially when it comes to the food that you're eating.
Sure. Well, and you mentioned that host, that fellow host, I guess elsewhere, with pre-diabetes, and that's not something that I guess I've really even thought about, the fact that, okay, maybe you're teetering on that line, right, between type 2 and pre-diabetes. That I hadn't really thought about much. But I do have a quick question for you, Monica. My sister diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, but later in life, somewhere around 21, 22 years old. Is that a commonplace thing, or is it often with type 1 diabetes, that's something that you're kind of born into? How does that go? How does that kind of happen? Do you have anything for me there?
Yeah, I mean, with type 1 diabetes, we do typically see that more in younger people. And so, for someone of that age, it might have just been the progress of the pancreas just kind of, it was working a little bit. I mean, she might have had blood sugar issues for 5 years before they diagnosed her with type 1. So it's really just all about how much insulin is your pancreas secreting. Do you have to take that, externally because your body's not making it enough? So we definitely see it a little bit more in younger, kids, so to speak. But that doesn't mean that as an adult, your pancreas can't just totally say, I'm not working anymore. And, just as you age, those kinds of things happen. So, for example, you might have type 2 diabetes, but your pancreas, it's still working a little bit, but you do have to take insulin to kind of balance that out. So that's not unheard of either.
Okay. Well, thank you for just helping me out there a little bit and some understanding there. But you mentioned screenings just moments ago, and that seems to be certainly the best way of taking care of yourself and making sure that if you have any of these issues or really just should be getting screened a little more often, maybe this is a good time to do so. Well, you talked about at the very beginning there, maybe this isn't typically what we talk about as the St. Louis Dairy Council, but I've enjoyed this start to the conversation. But I am wondering, what about food choices? Because for some with type 2 diabetes especially, this is something that might really benefit them. What can you tell us about improving your health, your blood sugar through your food choices?
Right. So the term I mentioned earlier was carbohydrate. And so in the diabetes world, that's really the foods, the grams on the label that you're looking for, that you're counting. If you meet with a dietitian, they will probably give you a certain number of carbs to eat per meal and snack. But there's other things that you can do to improve your blood sugars. And so 2 key types of foods that really help with managing diabetes, in addition to counting your carbs, are getting enough protein and getting enough fiber in all of your meals and all of your snacks. And the reason for that is because those kinds of foods slow down digestion. So basically your body, when you eat, it's digesting those foods and your blood sugar is rising, and it's going to rise slower if you include protein foods and fiber foods. It kind of just basically gives your body a little bit more time, or even the medications that you're taking with meals a little bit more time to work. And so that really helps with those blood sugar spikes, because we want it to rise slow. We don't want it to rise really quickly at one time, because then it's basically going to drop really fast as well. And people will feel symptoms from that particular thing as well. So just to give you a couple different ideas, with the dairy food group, milk and cottage cheese, yogurt, and also cheese, those foods have a lot of protein in them. They have varying amounts of carbohydrate. And when you combine those with fiber foods, like maybe some fresh vegetables or some berries, whole grains, then that meal or that snack is going to take a lot longer to digest. And so your blood sugar is not going to be spiking as rapidly. So just to kind of give you an example of that, cottage cheese, which has actually kind of exploded over the last couple of years, people are really honing in on the fact that it has 12 grams of protein for a half of a cup. And that's quite a bit. But it only has 6 grams of carbohydrate. So if you like cottage cheese, this is an excellent food to help treat diabetes, because you pair it with something maybe like a fresh peach, or you have put it on your salad. It's going to give you that protein, but it's not going to have a lot of carbohydrate. So it's not going to spike your blood sugar up. And so that's a really great option for a snack instead of something like potato chips or crackers or something like that, because it's giving you lots of protein, and then you can pair different kinds of fibers with it to help manage those blood sugars.
Well, I tell you, cottage cheese really has exploded in terms of popularity. Like all these recipes coming out, like 5-step,
Yes.
Little cottage. It's interesting to see that. But then it's kind of like coleslaw. I don't know, maybe coleslaw will have its time too, where I've heard a lot of folks growing up didn't care for cottage cheese and then don't care for coleslaw. Maybe it's when you get a little older, you come back to it. So we are talking with Monica Nyman, senior nutrition educator and registered dietitian with the St. Louis Dairy Council. We're going to come back with her and talk more about those dairy foods helping with diabetes, and also just ways to work on nutrition, how to maybe seek that out as well. So we'll come back with Monica in just one moment. You're listening to WTIM, your information station, and our morning show brought to you by People's Bank and Trust.
Your information station. WTIM.
The Lady Tornado basketball team are on 96.5 thechill.com again this season. Listen on air or online for Lady Tornado basketball and playoff games, brought to you by the Taylorville Community Credit Union, the Christian County YMCA, Earl Reynolds, and Scooter's Coffee.
The purple and gold are coming your way. The Taylorville Tornadoes are going to do it today.
People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, are proud to continue their long-standing sponsorship of honoring Taylorville High School Students of the Month on WTIM's many platforms on AM, FM, and streamed online, and on WMKR Genuine Country 94.3.
Hello, my name is Morgan Smith. My parents are Megan Smith and Ronald Smith. I am a dancer at Studio 1518. I also attend Purple Rain. I like to listen to music and hang out with my friends. I also attend church in Blue Mound. I study 2 careers, one in cosmetology and the second in interior design. And my favorite subject is math because I'm really good at it.
People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, salutes these great Taylorville High School students on this honor and wish them the best in their future. People's Bank and Trust, member FDIC.
Double your impact with sight and sound. Reach customers through our 6 regional radio stations, plus capture their attention with our 36 by 72-inch digital billboard right on Route 29 in Taylorville. That's nearly 11,000 drivers seeing your message every single day while they're already listening to your radio ads. Ready to maximize your reach? Call your regional radio account manager today and put your business in front of eyes and ears across Central Illinois. Regional radio is where your message gets noticed.
Finding a local job in Central Illinois has never been easier. Don't waste time driving far or spending too much on gas. Visit IllinoisJobPost.com. It's your one-stop site to find local, full-time, and part-time job openings. Best of all, it's completely free for job seekers to access anytime, day or night. So if you're ready to land a job close to home, make IllinoisJobPost.com your first stop. That's IllinoisJobPost.com. Brought to you by your friends at the regional radio stations.
The Christian County Health Department has both COVID and flu vaccines available, with both high-dose and regular-dose flu vaccines in stock. Call and make your appointment now. Get their number and more info by clicking their icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Here's Dr. Pavi Gill from Springfield Clinic, Taylorville.
Lifestyle medicine is about motivating you to improve your quality of life by changing habits and behaviors.
Find out more by clicking Dr. Gill's icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Your information station. WTIM.
And we're back with the WTIM Morning Show here on your information station, and brought to you by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville. I'm your host, Grayson Bauman. Joining us in this segment, Monica Nyman, Senior Nutrition Educator and Registered Dietitian with the St. Louis Dairy Council. We've been talking National Diabetes Month here in November, and some of those healthy food choices that you can make to help benefit your cause, if that is the case for you. Well, Monica, what about some other ways that dairy foods can help people with diabetes, and what can you tell us there?
Sure. So milk, yogurt, and cheese. Most listeners are probably familiar with us saying all the time that they're great sources of calcium. And many of those foods are also fortified with vitamin D. And the reason for that is because you have to have vitamin D in order to absorb calcium. But what a lot of people don't know is that both of those nutrients also tie into insulin production. And there are some studies that have shown that vitamin D can help reduce insulin resistance. And that's basically when it doesn't want to go into the cells for people with type 2 diabetes. And then recently, there is a new claim that has came out with yogurt. So with yogurt, it's a fascinating food because of the healthy bacteria that's in it. But there are also some different research articles that have shown that it can help reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes. And so the claim by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration is that if you eat yogurt regularly, and that's 2 cups per week, so not per day, but at least 2 cups per week, it can reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes according to limited scientific evidence. So that's really exciting in the dairy world, especially for that food of yogurt, because again, it provides so many health benefits already with the calcium and the protein and the healthy bacteria. And now there are some studies that kind of link that to reducing the risk of type 2 diabetes. So, the dairy food group can definitely help support any type of meal plan, but particularly with those people who are dealing with diabetes.
Well, I got to say, as a fairly regular yogurt eater, I'm not too mad to hear about some additional benefits to it as well. That wasn't the one of the reasons, but I'll add it to the list there. And Monica, we've been talking about those dairy foods and how they're going to help, but say I'm needing some additional assistance or information, who might I seek out for that?
Sure. So we always recommend reaching out to a registered dietitian. And so at the St. Louis Dairy Council, our entire staff are registered dietitians, and we're qualified to help people with nutrition, especially with the management of diabetes. So through all of your local hospitals, you should have outpatient services. And actually, there's a lot of online kind of telecommunication programs that are available that offer nutrition counseling. And I've even found that some of our local hospitals are using those platforms just because it's, after COVID, we kind of changed gears of how we provide services in many different ways. And that's just one of them is nutrition services. But every single person dealing with diabetes kind of has their own unique responses to whether it's foods that they're eating or the combination, the timing, the medications that they're taking. And so a registered dietitian can really set you up on a meal plan, teach you a little bit more about, foods that you maybe thought were healthier for you, but may not be, kind of explain the fiber and the protein and kind of those different combinations. And so working with an RD can definitely be helpful navigating through diabetes and nutrition. And again, your goal is to keep those blood sugars down so that you do not have all of those complications over time. And so even if you say, well, my blood sugar normally is about 30 points higher than it should be, that's not too bad. It's still causing problems. So just kind of keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Well, Monica, I do want to just mention real quickly here this month's recipe, which you can find at stlouisdairycouncil.org, stldairycouncil.org. They've got triple protein pancakes there for you to view. But Monica, thank you so much for joining us here today.
You are so welcome.
And Monica Nyman, registered dietitian, senior nutrition educator with the St. Louis Dairy Council, joining us here on the WTIM Morning Show.